Well, President Trump today firing back at a district judge for blocking his attempts to cut off federal money from so-called sanctuary cities, which refuse to enforce federal immigration law. Trump blasted the move, tweeting this, quote, "First, the Ninth Circuit rules against the ban. Now it hits again on sanctuary cities, both ridiculous rulings. See you in the Supreme Court." The likely appeal going to be heard by the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, which previously had blocked the president's executive order on restricting immigration and travel from a number of countries with terrorism problems. All right, moments ago, the Trump administration announcing a sweeping tax reform plan, slashing rates for both individuals and businesses across the U.S. Joining me now is Cato Institute Senior Fellow, the one, the only Dan Mitchell is here, former Illinois Congressman and syndicated radio host Joe Walsh, along with former DNC D.C. Chairman Scott Bolden. Gentlemen, welcome to all of you.
Good afternoon.
I do want to start with you, Dan. You're a little pessimistic about this.
Well, simply stated,
I'm surprised to hear this.
I'm excited about the prospect of a big tax cut and lower tax rates, less double taxation, no death tax. I mean, I want to have a little party.
Yeah.
But when the Joint Committee on Taxation, the bean counters on Capitol Hill, score this, it's going to be a big tax cut. They don't have a lot of dynamic scoring. It's still very much that old-fashioned static scoring. And how are they going to make those pieces fit? Are they going to come up with some alternative revenue source? Some of that worries me. Are they going to restrain government spending? That would be great. That would be a win-win situation for taxpayers.
That would be nice.
But don't forget, a lot of politicians, we've already seen with the Obamacare repeal, they get very squeamish about controlling government spending. So the announcement is great, but there's so much work to be done between now and our taxes actually coming down.
Okay, it is about the politics. And Joe, you've been in this before. You've been through these fights before. What do you see happening based on what you heard today?
Hey, Cheryl, look, Dan's right, but Republicans have to ignore this revenue piece, this revenue-neutral piece. I mean, my God, I'm somebody, Cheryl, who doesn't mind slapping the president when I think he's not doing what he ought to be doing, but this is a great day. Go big or go home. What he has to do, and that's what Trump's done today, what he has to do, Cheryl, is grab the Republicans in D.C. by whatever body part he wants to grab them by and give them some courage. Trump believes in this. I apologize. I know this is national TV. Grab them by their toes. I don't care. But he has to instill some courage into these gutless Republicans to go big and push this stuff.
Oh, okay. Well, look, Scott, I have to say I can already hear the Democratic talking points, which will begin, I'm sure, in the next hour with this, this benefits the wealthy, it hurts the poor, but it doesn't. They were very clear that the 1% don't benefit from this. Scott, they don't.
You can start listening to the Democratic side within the hour. In fact, in the next couple seconds, I'm about to give it to you. But let me,
go ahead.
But let me just say this. This is a pronouncement and an announcement that had to take place in the first 100 days. One. Two, there are three things the Democrats are going to ask the Republicans in these sessions. One, how is this going to affect the working class and poor people? You
they get a tax break.
Yeah, it said that. But what was troublesome about the press conference with Mnuchin was this. The reporter asked, for a family of four making $60,000, which is middle class, what's that mean for them? He could not answer it. That's going to be a problem, and that's what's going to happen in the committee work, too.
But I heard his answer, and he said they're going to get a tax cut. There's
and
three
that's
brackets.
A very broad answer. They're going to get a tax cut. But what type of tax cut is that? And is this just a tax? These tax cuts are benefiting the wealthy and the corporations and not the real working class and poor people.
Gosh.
Now, listen, let me just finish. I am a former chair of the D.C. Chamber of Commerce. There's a lot I like about this pronouncement. But I also know we got a long way to go, and the Republicans, as Joe said, the Republicans are at war with each other. If you can't get past Obamacare, how are you going to pass this tax cut, which may have a little bit in it for everybody, but the Democrats are going to raise one last question. Where's Donald Trump's tax returns? Is he serving the American people with this tax cut, or is he serving himself and his many pass-through companies?
And
Those are legitimate questions.
The White House has answered that question. Sean Spicer's been asked it about 50 times so far, and it said he's under audit, and he's being audited. But Joe, you're shaking your head over this, but the thing is, that's the talking points. That what he is saying is exactly what we're going to hear from the other side for a while.
And Cheryl, I think what Trump has done today is sort of make those talking points obsolete. elite. Steve Cortez with you earlier nailed it. This is a great day for the working man and woman, for the small businessman or woman. They're going to see huge benefits from this tax cut, from this reform. My God, this is a day that we should all celebrate. The American people are going to be able to keep more of their own money.
But, Joe, that's not what the press conference said, though. That's not what Mnuchin said. He was very unclear. If that's true, then I'll jump on the bandwagon with you. But I'm going to tell you, this was a press conference short on details, and the devil's in the details, and that's where the Democrats
I need
and
to
the
bring in Dan
Republicans are
Mitchell.
going to go.
I need to bring in Dan Mitchell. Again, I'm just so happy that you're here, but because that's actually, I think we got more details in this than we expected. I didn't expect to hear anything on AMT. We did. The death tax, the repeal of that. I didn't expect to hear that. The 0% tax for married couples, at least when $60,000. I mean, there was a lot that they told us that I was surprised to hear about.
But with no legislation.
And here's
it's a plan. It's a plan.
And here's the talking point that maybe Mnuchin should have talked about. If we can get the economy growing instead of 2%, which is very anemic, if we can get back up to 3%, which shouldn't be that difficult, that makes an enormous difference over the long run to an ordinary family. Yes, it's great ordinary families get a lower tax bill, but it's even more important if we can get up to 3% or even higher growth like we had in the 1980s. Then you're talking about getting higher pre-tax incomes in addition to having a lower tax bill. That is the #1 objective of good fiscal policy, and that's why not only should we lower tax rates, reduce double taxation, we also should control the growth of government spending so that we can make these tax cuts more durable and more sustainable, assuming we don't want to wind up like Western Europe.
You know, guys, and I have to say, I'm sure that anyone that's watching right now that is making $60,000 or $100,000, if you were to say, you're going to get a huge pay raise from your company and a promotion because they're going to bring money home, or, you know, your tax rate may not, go as low as you want, they're going to say, I want the job, I want the cash, I want the money, I want a new car. I mean, that's how people think, and that's who they've got to sell this to.
Hey, can I make one last point before you jump off, and that is this.
I got 10 seconds, yeah.
The biggest question is, can this government afford it? And how does the Trump White House and Republicans make it affordable for these tax cuts as opposed to increasing the deficit with no plan on keeping that part on the
reduce government spending.
That's a big issue.
There's so many questions. We're going to answer them after a quick commercial break. Guys, thank you very much. You're going to